There's a strange moment that happens in a person's life when the world is not changed at all, but it no longer fits. Like the same streets are there, the same stores, the same faces and the same windows, the same habits, the same jokes repeated by the same people at the same volume. But something in you has moved 3 inches to the left. And now everything feels slightly misaligned. You can't always explain it. You just know that what once felt normal now feels like staged. What once comforted you now exhausts you. What once distracted you now leaves a taste of cardboard in your mouth. Many people think something is wrong when this begins, but usually something is right. In a world full of noise, trust the signal. If you're hearing this, you've already found it. This is Dove and Serpent Radio. Good evening, or early morning, or whatever honest hour this is for you. There are people who live by clocks, and there are people who live by tides. If you're listening now, there's a chance you belong to the second category. Some people wake up when the sun does. Others wake when the world finally becomes quiet enough to hear themselves think. The night has always belonged to those who need less performance and more truth. I've been thinking lately about how many people walk around assuming discomfort means failure. Like if something feels off, they think they must be broken, lazy, depressed, ungrateful, unmotivated, defective in some fashionable way. But discomfort often means growth has arrived before language did. It means some inner structure is changing faster than your vocabulary can explain it. Like a person can outgrow a room before they know the word outgrow. They can outgrow a friendship before they know the phrase, we no longer meet each other where we are. They can outgrow an identity before they understand identities are allowed to expire. That's one of the quieter tragedies of modern life, you know. We hand people labels long before we teach them seasons. We teach them to define themselves early, then shame them when they evolve later. You are the funny one, the shy one, the wild one, the dependable one, the troubled one, the smart one, the pretty one, the angry one, the one who never leaves town, the one who always ruins things. People are often assigned a role in someone else's unfinished play and then expected to perform it forever. Maybe what feels different now is that you're getting tired of the costume. And there's no dramatic music when this happens, no trumpet from the sky. Usually it arrives quietly. You stop laughing at the things you used to laugh at. You become less interested in gossip. You start craving clean spaces, direct speech, deeper sleep, simpler food, and honest company. You find yourself staring out windows more often. You become protective of your time in a way that surprises even you. You begin noticing how many interactions are really transactions, just wearing lipstick. And because the shift is subtle, people misread it. They think they're becoming boring. They think they're losing their spark. They think they need to, like, get back to who they were. But what if who you were was only a bridge? There's a loneliness that comes with growth that nobody warns you about. It's not the loneliness of having no one around. It's the loneliness of being surrounded by people who still recognize an older version of you. They keep speaking to the archive while you stand there in the present. They tell stories about you that no longer fit. They summon a ghost and call it your name. They aren't always malicious. Sometimes they just haven't updated the file. Yeah, and you may have noticed that at like family gatherings or old friend circles, workplaces, even in your own home. Someone speaks to you as if you're still like 22, still desperate for approval, eager to be chosen, still willing to laugh off what hurts. And quietly you realize that the person they're addressing hasn't lived here in years. That realization can feel cold. It can also feel freeing. It's 2:17 in the morning, somewhere that matters. There are things that the night understands better than the day, like daylight is useful, but it can be shallow. It favors surfaces. Yeah, it rewards speed, appearance, momentum, announcements, posture. Night asks slower questions. Night asks what remains when no one is watching. Night asks whether your life feels like yours when applause is removed, right, from the equation. And many listeners know exactly what I mean. The day belongs to obligation. Night belongs to inventory. You sit in a kitchen with one light on. You hear the refrigerator humming like an old monk. You scroll past faces selling certainty. You think about years gone by. You wonder when you became the kind of person who values peace over excitement. You wonder why some victories now feel suspiciously expensive. You wonder why being admired by strangers seems less nourishing than being understood by one person. That's not decline. That's refinement. We live in a culture that confuses stimulation with vitality. If you're not constantly activated, entertained, outraged, lusted after, invited, upgraded, optimized, photographed, or applauded, then something must be wrong. But many people are not tired because life is hard. They're tired because they're overstimulated and undernourished. Too much input, too little meaning, too much reaction, too little reflection. And I think the nervous system knows this before the mind admits it, You can call it burnout. Sometimes it's the starvation of the soul by triviality. I once knew a man who kept every television in his house on, like at all times, kitchen, bedroom, garage, living room. It didn't matter if he was listening. He said silence made him uneasy. And I understood him more than he realized. Many people fear silence because silence removes the camouflage. Without noise, they can hear the furniture of the psyche creaking. They can hear unresolved grief walking the halls. They can hear the question they've postponed for 10 years. What do I actually want? That question can destabilize an empire built on imitation. You know, one of the more interesting things in neuroscience is that the brain is not merely reacting to reality in real time, right, the way people imagine. It's constantly predicting what comes next, building models, anticipating patterns, filling gaps before conscious awareness catches up. In simple terms, you do not just see the world. You partly see your expectations of it, which means if you live long enough inside stale patterns, your mind can begin serving you yesterday as if it were today. Sometimes feeling different is the moment prediction fails. The old script no longer matches the present scene. The mind stutters. A new life wants rendering. That may be why change often feels disorienting before it feels liberating. You wake up and don't want the same things. Can't enjoy the same escapes. You lose patience for conversations made of recycled phrases. You become suspicious of people who are always on. You notice how many smiles are like managerial, you know? You notice how many opinions are rented. You notice how often people say crazy, when what they mean is inconvenient. And this can make the world seem harsher for a while, and really you're just seeing edges that used to be blurred. You're tuned to Dove and Serpent Radio. There's also the matter of grief. Not dramatic grief only, not funerals and headlines, quiet grief. Grief for versions of yourself that never got proper farewells. Grief for years spent proving things to people who were never qualified to judge you. Grief for opportunities missed because you still believe someone else's opinion was destiny. Grief for the tenderness you buried to survive practical seasons. Some listeners carry grief so long they mistake it for personality. If that's you tonight, hear this carefully. Adaptation is not identity. The armor helped. It may even have saved you. But the armor is heavy. And eventually the body's going to ask if the war's finally over. Sometimes the reason you feel different now is not because you became someone new. It's because you're becoming someone older than the defense. And that can look like softness. It can look like tears arriving out of nowhere in the grocery store aisle. It can look like being moved by a child laughing in the next room. It can look like suddenly wanting to apologize to someone from years ago. It can look like no longer needing to win every invisible argument in your head. There's strength in that, though the loud world rarely markets it. I think a lot of people are privately exhausted by competition that they never consciously entered. Better body, better house, better youth, better vacations, better politics, better trauma story, better healing journey, better morning routine, better suffering. with superior lighting. It's hard to feel sane inside a system where even rest becomes performance. You do not need to compete in arenas you did not choose. I think that sentence alone could return years to a lot of people. I think many of us are in a season of subtraction. We don't need more hacks, more gurus, more urgency, more apps telling us to hydrate with aggression. You need fewer lies, fewer obligations disguised as opportunities, fewer relationships based on mutual distraction, fewer purchases trying to solve spiritual problems, fewer self-betrayals committed for convenience. There is a tremendous amount of energy hidden inside the word no. And yet, no by itself is not enough. Nature hates vacuums, right? If you remove chaos but you don't welcome meaning, chaos will apply again under a different name. So perhaps the deeper work is not only what to cut, but what to cultivate. Attention, discernment, humor, craft, health, friendship with people who speak plainly, time outdoors, honest prayer, whatever that means to you. Competence is something real. A room that feels calm when you enter it, a body that trusts you, a conscience you can sleep beside. Those are old treasures. They remain unfashionably effective. And there's something else worth saying tonight. Not everyone will celebrate your evolution. Some actually benefited from your confusion. Some people enjoyed you smaller, like guiltier, more available, easier to steer, less discerning, more eager to earn crumbs as if they were banquets. The moment you become clear, certain arrangements become impossible. And this is why clarity can feel like loss. You may think, like when I got healthier, some people drifted away. When I became calmer, some people got irritated. When I set boundaries, some people called me cold. Yeah. Certain dynamics require your dysfunction to continue. When it stops, the dance floor empties. Let it. Strange fact in nature. When a forest has been stressed for too long, some trees begin communicating like that distress chemically through their roots and like fungal networks underground. Resources are redirected. Warnings are passed. Support moves invisibly before the casual observer notices anything above the soil. I think humans do something similar, though less elegantly. We feel shifts in each other beneath language. We sense when someone has changed, even if they haven't announced it. We respond, sometimes kindly, sometimes defensively. That may explain why some rooms feel different when you enter them now. You do not need to declare transformation for it to be real. There's a dignity in private change, in becoming stronger without making content about it, in healing without turning it into branding, in studying quietly, paying debts silently, and losing weight without speeches, in forgiving without a public theater, in reading books no one will clap for, in going to bed earlier and calling it revolution. Some of the best changes are almost invisible from the street. Tonight's forecast: clear skies above, unresolved questions below. I often wonder sometimes how many people are waiting for permission to become themselves. Like waiting for the right partner, the right income, the right diagnosis, the right apology, the right sign, the right age, the right confidence, the right Monday morning. But life is not an airport gate with announcements, Much of adulthood is self-authorized. No one arrives with a clipboard and says, "You may begin now." You begin because continuing otherwise has become more painful. And maybe that's where you are tonight. Not in crisis exactly, just unable to continue certain false arrangements. Unable to keep laughing where it hurts. Unable to keep spending where it empties you. Unable to keep shrinking to reassure others. Unable to keep calling numbness peace. That threshold matters. Many beautiful lives begin there. People ask how to reinvent themselves as if reinvention were theatrical. New city, new wardrobe, new profile picture, new declarations. Sometimes reinvention is smaller and more durable. Drinking water, keeping promises to yourself, leaving one toxic chat thread, taking a walk each morning, reading instead of doom scrolling, telling the truth once where you usually perform, learning one useful skill, saving money quietly, saying, "That doesn't work for me anymore." Tiny hinges swing enormous doors. And if progress feels slow, remember this: a person can be changing profoundly while appearing externally to be unchanged. Roots deepen in silence. Muscles repair in sleep. Character forms in repetition no audience would ever watch. Do not measure sacred processes by public speed. I think the listeners out there at this hour know something others forget. You know that solitude and loneliness are not twins. Solitude can nourish. Loneliness can happen in crowded rooms. Solitude says, "I am with myself." Loneliness says, "No one can meet me here." One can heal the second, but only if it's used well. So if you are alone tonight, do not automatically call it failure. Sometimes it's incubation. Sometimes the old social circle had to fall away before your real voice could be heard over the noise. Sometimes being misunderstood is the toll paid at the bridge between identities. Sometimes the silence after leaving chaos feels empty only because you haven't yet learned the sound of peace. And that takes time. And speaking of time, it behaves strangely in emotional life. An anxious hour can feel endless. A loved decade can vanish in memory like a weekend. We often imagine clocks as like objective rulers. But lived time bends around attention, novelty, pain, meaning. This may be why periods of stagnation feel like years, while seasons of awakening feel like they begin yesterday, no matter how old we are. If life has felt strangely fast lately, it may be because you're finally awake enough to notice it. Use that knowledge gently. Do not panic because years passed. Use the shock as fuel. There are people who waste decades asleep and then spend the rest of their life mourning. Better to awaken now, even if now arrives late. Late is still alive. Somewhere tonight, someone's deleting old photos. Someone is staring at a packed suitcase. Someone's apologizing. Someone is not answering a message for the first time. Someone's opening a savings account. Someone is reading a book instead of texting an ex. Someone is taking a pill they were afraid to take. Someone's, praying after years of sarcasm. Someone is admitting they need help. Someone else is realizing they no longer do. These are sacred, ordinary moments, and history rarely records them. But lives turn on them constantly. I hope you don't underestimate the power of ordinary courage. Grand courage is dramatic and rare, right? Ordinary courage is available daily. Making the appointment, telling the truth, starting over, admitting love, ending denial, going for the walk, logging off, beginning badly, continuing anyway. I've always had respect for ordinary courage. There's another misconception worth discarding. Many people think clarity feels like certainty. Often it feels like relief. The body relaxes first, the jaw unclenches, sleep returns in pieces, appetite normalizes, maybe you laugh more easily. You stop rehearsing conversations that never happen. You stop checking whether everyone approves. You become less interested in being impressive and more interested in being free. That's how clarity often enters the room. If you're waiting to feel fireworks before making a wise change, you may wait too long. Sometimes wisdom arrives dressed as a quiet exhale. I'd also say this to those grieving younger versions of themselves. Yes, you were brighter in some ways then, more reckless, maybe more hopeful, maybe more beautiful by certain shallow metrics. But youth is not automatically depth. Many people mistake freshness for wisdom, You have things now you didn't have then. Pattern recognition, discernment, scar tissue that became map lines. Appreciation for calm and maybe even mercy. Don't envy your unfinished forms too much. You're allowed to become more subtle, more private, more exacting, more selective, more difficult to manipulate, more tender with the right people, less available to nonsense. That's not becoming hard. That's becoming shaped. The world may call it different. Let 'em. There are people tonight who feel they missed their chance. And I don't know every circumstance. Some losses are real, some doors close, some consequences stay. But many people confuse one timeline with the only timeline. They grieve lives that existed only as fantasy edits. Meanwhile, A real, unlived future waits in the next room. Open that door instead. We're nearing the end of our time together, or whatever measure this was. Time behaves strangely here. Perhaps that's good. Perhaps some places should be measured less by minutes and more by honesty. If tonight you feel different, restless, less tolerant of the false, more protective of the real, strangely emotional, drawn to quieter things, less entertained by noise, more interested in meaning, don't assume something precious had been lost. You may simply be arriving. And arriving is rarely glamorous. It often looks like tired eyes, a cleaner room, fewer contacts, a slower heart. A notebook with plans no one knows about. And the first true breath you've taken in years. Keep going quietly. Protect what's growing before you expose it to weather. Trust the unease that points away from dead rooms. Trust the calm that appears near honest paths. Trust the version of you that wants less theater and more truth. Somewhere out there, someone is hearing these words and feeling less alone. That matters more than metrics ever will. Until next time, keep the dial somewhere between wonder and understanding.